Marcus Johnson checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The terminal bustled with travelers rushing to their gates. But Marcus stood perfectly still, an island of calm in the chaotic sea of DFW International Airport. At 43, he had mastered the art of patience, a skill honed through years of building Horizon Technologies from a startup in his garage to a billion-dollar enterprise. Today's flight to San Francisco was crucial. The board meeting tomorrow could determine whether Horizon would acquire its biggest competitor, a move that would solidify their position as the industry leader in cloud security solutions. Marcus had prepared for months for this presentation, and everything needed to go smoothly. He adjusted his charcoal Tom Ford suit and checked his boarding pass on his phone. First class, as usual, not because he enjoyed luxury, though he could certainly afford it, but because it allowed him the space and time to review his presentations before important meetings. The email confirmation showed boarding would begin in 15 minutes. Marcus thought about his journey, how far he'd come from a small apartment in South Chicago, where he'd grown up with his mother working 2 jobs to keep food on the table. He'd earned a scholarship to MIT through relentless determination, working night shifts at the campus library while maintaining perfect grades. After graduation, he'd rejected lucrative offers from tech giants, choosing instead to build something of his own. 15 years, he murmured to himself. 15 years of sleepless nights, failed prototypes, near bankruptcies, and finally, spectacular success. Horizon Technologies now employed over 5,000 people worldwide. Marcus made a point to know as many of their names as possible. The overhead announcement broke his reverie. Attention passengers of Cloudstream Airlines Flight 372 to San Francisco. We will now begin pre-boarding for our first-class passengers, active military personnel, and those needing special assistance. Please have your boarding passes ready. Marcus approached the gate, his carry-on rolling smoothly behind him. 3 other passengers, 2 older white men in business attire, and a white woman in her 30s approached the gate agent at the same time. The agent smiled warmly at them, checking their boarding passes efficiently before waving them through. When Marcus stepped forward, the smile on the gate agent's face dimmed slightly. "Sir, we're currently boarding first class only," she said, her voice taking on a practiced customer service tone. "Yes, I understand," Marcus replied, offering his digital boarding pass displayed on his phone. "I'm in first class." The agent, her name tag read Karen, squinted at his phone. "I'll need to see your actual boarding pass." "Sir, not just a confirmation email. This is the boarding pass," Marcus explained calmly, zooming in on the QR code. "It's the same format I've used for all my flights with Cloudstream." Karen's lips thinned. "Sir, maybe you misunderstood your booking. This section is for first class only." Marcus felt a familiar tightening in his chest, that same sensation he'd experienced countless times throughout his life when someone made assumptions based solely on his appearance. He took a deep breath before responding. "I didn't misunderstand anything," he said, keeping his voice even. "I'm in first class, C2A. Would you like to code confirm?" Karen glanced behind him, where other passengers were beginning to line up. "Sir, I think you should step aside and wait for general boarding. I have other passengers to attend to." The dismissal was so casual, so practiced, that Marcus momentarily wondered if he had somehow misread his own booking. He double-checked his phone. No, there was in black and white. "First class, C2A? Excuse me," Marcus said, standing his ground despite growing discomfort from the stares of other travelers. "There seems to be some confusion. I've paid for a first-class ticket, and I'd appreciate if you'd simply scan my boarding pass to confirm this." Karen's face hardened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. You're holding up the line." "I'd be happy to step aside once you explain why you won't scan my valid first-class boarding pass," Marcus replied, his professional negotiation skills kicking in. "All I'm asking is to be treated like the other first-class passengers you just processed." A second agent approached a younger man whose name tag identified him as Trevor. He leaned in as Karen whispered something to him, both of them glancing at Marcus with expressions that made his stomach tighten. "Is there a problem here?" Trevor asked, his tone suggesting that he already believed Marcus was the problem. "There shouldn't be," Marcus answered. "I have a confirmed first-class reservation and boarding pass, but your colleague refuses to scan it or explain why. Trevor held out his hand. Let me see your boarding pass, sir. Marcus held up his phone again, pointing to the clearly displayed information. Trevor barely glanced at it. Sir, are you sure you didn't accidentally select first class when viewing your reservation? Economy tickets sometimes display that way in the app. Marcus felt heat rising to his face, but maintained his composure. 15 years of boardroom negotiations had taught him never to show frustration. I'm quite certain. I paid $1,876 for this ticket specifically because I need to prepare for a meeting tomorrow. Step aside, please, Trevor insisted. We can sort this out after we board the priority passengers. At this point, a line had formed behind Marcus. Some passengers shifted uncomfortably, while others openly stared. A few had their phones out, not so subtly recording the interaction. I am a priority passenger, Marcus stated firmly, and I'd like to speak with your supervisor immediately. Trevor's expression hardened. Sir, if you continue to disrupt the boarding process, I'll have to call security. The threat hung in the air between them. Marcus knew this crossroads while had faced it in high-end stores, in hotel lobbies, in valet lines. The familiar calculation ran through his head. Stand up for yourself and risk escalation, or walk away and preserve your dignity but accept the injustice. Not today. Not after everything he'd built. Not with what was at stake. Please do call your supervisor, Marcus said. I'll wait. Trevor and Karen exchanged glances before Trevor stepped away to use a phone at the counter. Meanwhile, Karen continued boarding other passengers, carefully avoiding eye contact with Marcus. 5 minutes later, a woman in her 50s with more elaborate uniform approached. Her name tag read Patricia Morris, gate supervisor. Good afternoon, sir. I understand there's some confusion about your boarding, she said, her tone professional but cool. There's no confusion on my end, Marcus replied. I have a first-class ticket that your agents refuse to honor without explanation. Patricia held out her hand. May I see your boarding pass, please? For the third time, Marcus displayed his phone. Patricia actually took the time to look at it, though her expression remained skeptical. I see. And can you verify your name and confirmation number? Marcus Johnson. Confirmation LCTN 782. She tapped something into her tablet, then looked up with a slightly changed expression. Mr. Johnson, there appears to be a glitch in our system. Your reservation shows an economy seat, not first class. Marcus opened his email and showed her the original confirmation. As you can see, I booked and paid for first class. I have the receipt showing the exact amount. Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly as she examined the email. This could be an issue with our booking system. Occasionally, seat assignments get shuffled during updates. Unfortunately, our first-class cabin is completely full today. That's difficult to believe when I booked this seat 3 months ago, Marcus replied. And interestingly, the 3 people who approached the gate at exactly the same time as me had no problems boarding first class. Patricia's expression tightened. Mr. Johnson, I understand your frustration, but I can assure you there's no preferential treatment happening here. It's simply a technical glitch. A glitch that somehow only affected my reservation? Marcus asked pointedly. Sir, I'm trying to help you, Patricia responded, her customer service veneer beginning to crack. We can offer you an economy plus seat and a partial refund, or you can take a later flight where we might be able to accommodate your first-class reservation. Marcus checked his watch again. The meeting was too important to miss, and they both knew it. They were counting on him, accepting the downgrade rather than fighting further. Before I make that decision, Marcus said slowly, I'd like to make a quick phone call. Patricia nodded stiffly. Of course. Please step aside while you do so. We need to continue boarding. Marcus moved aside of the gate area, maintaining a calm demeanor despite the anger simmering beneath his surface. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for, Richard Calloway. Richard had been on Horizon's board for 5 years, a retired airline executive who had previously served as the CEO of Cloudstream Airlines for over a decade before joining Horizon's board. They had developed not just a professional relationship, but a friendship based on mutual respect. The phone rang twice before Richard's voice came through. "Marcus, aren't you flying out today for tomorrow's meeting?" "That was the plan, Richard," Marcus replied, keeping his voice low, but ensuring the gate agents could see he was on a call. "But I'm having an unusual experience at the gate with CloudStream that I thought you might find interesting." Marcus explained the situation concisely, the way he would outline a business problem in the boardroom. Richard listened without interruption. "I see," Richard said when Marcus finished. His voice had shifted from friendly to razor sharp. "Put me on speaker and hand the phone to the gate supervisor, please." Marcus approached Patricia, who was supervising the boarding process. "My colleague would like to speak with you," he said, tapping the speaker button and holding out the phone. "This is Patricia Morris, gate supervisor." "How can I help you?" she said with practiced courtesy. "Patricia, this is Richard Calloway, former CEO of CloudStream Airlines and current board member. What's your employee ID number?" The color drained from Patricia's face as she automatically responded, "EM478932, sir." "Thank you. Now, I want you to understand something clearly. Marcus Johnson is not just any passenger. He's the CEO of Horizon Technologies, a company that handles cloud security for every aspect of CloudStream's operations, including your booking system, payment processing, and customer databases. He's also a CloudStream Platinum member who flies over 100,000 miles with your airline annually. I personally reviewed the implementation of his company's security systems during my last year as CEO. The gate area had gone eerily quiet as nearby passengers realized something significant was happening. Several more phones were now recording the interaction. Richard continued, his voice carrying clearly through the speaker. "I've just texted CloudStream's current CEO, who was my direct appointment before I retired. I've also contacted your regional director. I suggest you take another look at Mr. Johnson's reservation, carefully this time, while I stay on the line." Patricia's hands trembled slightly as she picked up her tablet again. Trevor and Karen had both stopped what they were doing to watch. I'll need to check something in our system," Patricia stammered, tapping frantically on her tablet. After a moment, her face showed a mix of shock and dismay. "It appears there was an error. Mr. Johnson's reservation does indeed show first class. I don't understand how we missed this. I think we both understand exactly what happened." Richard's voice came through the speaker. "Now, here's what's going to happen next. Mr. Johnson will be escorted to his correct seat immediately. Upon arrival in San Francisco, the regional director will meet him to personally apologize. And starting right now, you're going to temporarily suspend boarding until the situation is properly documented." "Suspend boarding?" Patricia echoed, aghast. "We're already running behind schedule. That would delay the entire flight, which is preferable to the alternative." Richard responded coolly. "CloudStream literally cannot afford to lose its security contract with Horizon Technologies. One word from Mr. Johnson about how he was treated today, and your airline could find itself without the cybersecurity infrastructure it depends on. So yes, you will suspend boarding, document this incident thoroughly, and ensure nothing like this ever happens again." The implications hung in the air. CloudStream's entire digital infrastructure, from online bookings to app functionality to payment processing, relied on Horizon security systems. Without them, the airline would effectively be grounded. Patricia swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. I understand." She turned to Trevor. "Suspend boarding. Now." Trevor's eyes widened. "But now," Patricia repeated firmly. Trevor made an announcement over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the inconvenience, but boarding for Flight 372 to San Francisco will be temporarily delayed. We appreciate your patience." A collective groan rose from the waiting passengers. Richard wasn't finished. "Patricia, I want you to make another announcement explaining exactly why boarding is suspended. The passengers deserve to know." "Sir, that's not standard protocol," Patricia protested weakly. "Neither is profiling your first-class passengers," Richard shot back. "Make the announcement." Marcus finally spoke up. "Richard, that won't be necessary. I don't want to hold up these people any longer than needed." He turned to Patricia. What I do want is acknowledgement of what really happened here, not excuses about system glitches. Patricia looked at him, then at the phone, then back at the increasingly restless crowd. Mr. Johnson, on behalf of Cloudstream Airlines, I sincerely apologize for the discriminatory treatment you received today. There was no system glitch. We made assumptions based on inappropriate factors, and that was wrong. The honesty surprised Marcus. He nodded once, accepting the apology. Thank you for your candor. Now, I believe we have a plane to board. Richard's voice came through the phone one more time. Patricia, expect a call from HR tomorrow. Marcus, I'll see you at the board meeting. Safe travels. The call ended, and Patricia, visibly shaken, turned to the gate. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now resume boarding. We apologize for the delay. As Marcus finally moved toward the jet bridge, boarding pass scanned without issue. He could feel dozens of eyes on him. Some passengers looked embarrassed, others impressed. A few nodded to him in silent solidarity. One settled in his first-class seat 2A. Exactly as booked, Marcus finally allowed himself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. The familiar mixture of anger, vindication, and exhaustion washed over him. He shouldn't have needed Richard's intervention to be treated with basic dignity. He shouldn't have needed the leverage of his company's importance to the airline. He shouldn't have needed any of it. Yet here he was, one of the most successful tech CEOs in the country, still facing the same prejudices he'd encountered as a teenager. The flight attendant approached with a pre-departure beverage. Mr. Johnson, she said, her smile genuine but nervous, we're honored to have you aboard. Can I get you anything before takeoff? Just water, thank you, he replied. As the plane pushed back from the gate, nearly 30 minutes behind schedule, Marcus opened his laptop. Instead of reviewing his acquisition presentation, he found himself opening a new document. He began typing a message to his executive team. Today reinforced something I've always known. Our work at Horizon isn't just about cybersecurity. It's about accountability. It's about creating systems where injustice can't hide behind technical glitches or system errors. I'm instructing our legal team to add new clauses to all our contracts. Any client company found engaged in discriminatory practices will face immediate contract review and potential termination. He paused, considering his next words carefully. We have power. Today I use mine. But what about all the people who don't have a friend on the board or a multi-million-dollar contract as leverage? What are we doing for them? By the time the plane reached cruising altitude, Marcus had drafted a complete proposal for a New Horizon initiative, a public accountability platform that would allow companies to track and transparently report incidents of discrimination, with measurable goals for improvement. When the plane landed in San Francisco, as promised, the regional director was waiting at the gate. Her apology seemed sincere, her embarrassment genuine. She handed Marcus a letter detailing the steps Cloudstream will be taking, including additional training for all gate agents and a review of boarding procedures. Mr. Johnson, we deeply value our relationship with Horizon Technologies, she said. But more importantly, we failed in our responsibility to treat every passenger with dignity and respect. That's on us, and we're committed to doing better. Marcus accepted the letter with a nod. I appreciate that, and I'll be watching to make sure those commitments translate into real change. As he walked to the terminal toward the taxi stand, his phone buzzed with notifications. Videos of the incident had already gone viral, with hundreds of thousands of views and comments. The airline stock had dropped 3% in after-hours trading. His assistant had also forwarded dozens of interview requests from major news networks. Everyone wanted his take on what was being called #FirstClassWhileBlack. Marcus declined them all. This wasn't about publicity for him or for Horizon. It was about something much more fundamental. That evening, in his hotel room, Marcus called his mother. "Did you see the videos?" he asked after they'd exchanged greetings. "I did," she replied. "Are you okay, baby?" At 68, she still called him baby. And right now, he didn't mind at all. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired of it, you know? 25 years after you and I sat in that financial aid office being told I didn't seem like scholarship material despite my perfect GPA. Nothing's really changed." His mother was quiet for a moment. "Some things have changed, Marcus." 25 years ago, you couldn't have made that call. You built something that gives you power, and today you use it the right way. But it shouldn't take power to be treated with basic human dignity, he argued. No, it shouldn't, she agreed. But since it sometimes does, I'm proud of you for using yours well. Your father will be proud, too. After hanging up, Marcus returned to his laptop. He revised a proposal he drafted on the plane, expanding it to include public-facing metrics and third-party auditing. By midnight, it was ready to present to the board alongside the acquisition proposal. The next morning, Marcus walked into the boardroom with both presentations ready. To his surprise, Richard Calloway was already there, along with the rest of the board. Before we get to the acquisition discussion, Richard said once everyone was seated, Marcus has another proposal I think deserves our immediate attention. For the next 30 minutes, Marcus outlined his vision for the accountability platform. When he finished, the room was silent. Finally, Janet Chun, the board's chairwoman, spoke up. This is ambitious, Marcus. Some of our clients won't like having their dirty laundry quantified and tracked. Some won't, Marcus agreed, and they can find another security provider. But I believe many will see this as an opportunity to demonstrate genuine commitment to change. The board discussed a proposal for another hour before taking a vote. It passed unanimously. As the meeting shifted to the acquisition discussion, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Yesterday's humiliation had been transformed into something constructive, something that might help others who didn't have the leverage he had. 6 months later, the Horizon Accountability Platform launched with 50 major companies signed on as inaugural partners, including Cloudstream Airlines. The platform allowed employees and customers to report incidents of discrimination, track company responses, and publish quarterly progress reports. At the launch event, a reporter asked Marcus what had inspired the platform. A personal experience reminded me that technology isn't neutral, he replied. It either reinforces existing power structures or helps dismantle them. At Horizon, we choose the latter. When asked about Cloudstream specifically, Marcus was gracious. They've demonstrated genuine commitment to improvement. Their latest metrics show a 60% reduction in reported incidents since implementing the additional training. That's progress worth acknowledging. As he left the podium, Marcus spotted a familiar face in the crowd, Patricia Morris from the gate that day. She had been promoted to head of Cloudstream's newly formed customer equity department and had come to support the platform launch. Mr. Johnson, she said, extending her hand. I want to thank you. For what? He asked, genuinely curious. For turning what could have been just another viral outrage moment into actual systemic change. She hesitated, then added, and personally, for helping me confront biases I didn't even realize I had. Marcus shook her hand firmly. That's the whole point of platform. Not public shaming, but genuine accountability and growth. As he drove home that evening, Marcus reflected on his mother's words from 6 months earlier. Some things had changed. Not enough. Not yet, but change was happening, one conversation, one policy, one platform at a time. His phone rang through the car's speaker system, Richard Calloway calling. The stock's up 12 points since the platform launch. Richard reported without preamble. Turns out doing the right thing is good business, too. Marcus smiled. That was never really in doubt, was it? Not to you, Richard replied. That's why we need people like you in charge. After hanging up, Marcus pulled into his driveway, noticing the warm glow of lights from inside his home. His wife, Serena, would be waiting with their 2 children, probably already planning their weekend activities. Tomorrow, he'd board another flight, first class, of course. He'd be treated with respect not because of who he was, but because of the systems now in place to ensure everyone received that same respect. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough until his children lived in a world where such systems weren't necessary. But it was progress hard-won, meaningful progress. And for tonight, that was something worth celebrating.